Well, good morning. It's Friday morning. Sun's just rising. It's a beautiful time. Saw a fantastic shooting star this morning. The Leonids have not disappointed this week. Every morning this week I've seen at least one really spectacular shooting star. So it's been really lovely. Makes worth getting up so early. But this morning, as promised, we're going to get into seeing if we can build a user rebuildable sky burial or excarnation platform from the Mesolithic. And to do that, we've got to get back into our modeling file, and we've got to provide 2 or 3 different versions of the same platform. So I did a little bit of prep for this earlier this week, well, yesterday. So we'll see how far we get, though, because I haven't actually gone into recreating the whole thing. So in front of us on the screen, you see we've got that little pond, that little lake. We've got our Shigir idol right here. And if I keep an eye out on things, there's our platforms. And it's not the one with the skeleton on it that we're interested in. Instead, it's this one right here, this collapsed one. I would love the user to be able to see a collapsed one and to be able to just click on it and just one click. So nothing too terribly complex, but just one click on it and allow the whole platform to rebuild. It would be an interesting animation to watch, and it would give the user some tiny bit of interaction in this space, in this period. And we'll also reveal an artifact, I hope, and provide a little tutorial moment, because this whole demo is still the tutorial phase. So anyway, those are the goals. So we've got this collapsed platform, and right now it is just a single game object. So if we go find it, so there's actually a few bits of bone down at the bottom under the soil. I don't know if we're going to animate the soil kind of vanishing when the player clicks on it or not. But mainly, it's just this platform. So it's just one game object. So that might be our final game object that we want it to become. So let's go back and look at the originals. So let's jump back into it in Cinema. And here's what I was working on yesterday. We've got it in Goose Game shading mode so that all you can see are colors and shapes. No shading. So very flat shading mode. And we can see that we've got a black platform, and we've also got it sitting in exactly the same place as a colored one. The vert colors are in all of these platforms. But what we have is a copy of this platform, which is all together here, the one with the skeleton on it. We've got a copy of that, and then we have a copy of the collapsed one. The collapsed one is just a single object, but the complete one and the copy of the collapsed one are all separate objects. And you can see in the hierarchy here that there's the complete one, and there's the collapsed one, and there's many objects in them. And that's what we need. So they're all unhelpfully named cylinder because I was never expecting to have these as individual objects, because I wasn't really expecting the user to be able to rebuild this, but the more I think about it, the more I like that idea. So I've gone back in and reconstructed some things. And the built platform has the exact same number and name of objects here as the collapsed platform. So the two of them share a hierarchy. Well, they don't share, but their hierarchies are the same. So we're going to grab these and stick them in their own file, and then we're going to export them into Unity and see if we can use a script I have, which is going to take the completed platforms, position and rotations, and it's going to copy them into a script that will animate each one of these individual objects when the player clicks on them. That's the idea. So I used this to force some ruined parts of the building, of the church building, very early on, and I haven't really touched these scripts in a year or more. So I'm not entirely certain what's going to happen. So let's find out. So we'll grab that. We'll grab that one. We'll put them into a new file. There's the two platforms together. One thing I want to do is so there's a group. So there's our main posts, and then there's a group underneath, which is kind of the actual platform top. I want to get rid of that so that we have only a single hierarchy. There aren't any grandchildren, it's just one parent, and then it's children. That's all I want. Because I think having a grandchild sort of relationship in here is going to mess up my script. So there we are. So they have the identical hierarchies, which is really important. And I need to get rid of these UV tags because that's just going to mess up the shading in the game. So those are all gone. We've got one material in the scene. If we drag and drop our vertex color tag, there we go. We can see our vertex colors there. Okay, so we've got the built one and we've got the collapsed copy. Those are the two we need. So let's go ahead and export these over to Unity. So export them as an FBX, of course. And in the FBX, let's look at buildings, really. And we get to put an exciting thing here called meso, because we actually have a meso building, quote unquote. So let's call this meso platforms. Yeah, that'll be fine. We'll call it just meso platforms. Just want to export our normals, our vert colors, and our textures. Or our materials, at least there are no textures. So that's done. It's all exported there. Now we need to just go find it and import it. So let's go see what we can do about that. So let's go put that away. Let's go grab these guys. We might have something for Screenshot Saturday today, which would be pretty fun. There it is, FBX exports, buildings. We'll grab that whole folder and copy it there. Stick it into the Unity projects here. And there it goes. Okay, so it's a tiny little file. 488 kilobytes, not too bad. Had an interesting little tiny, like 1 or 2 tweet conversation yesterday with the creator of the little but really interesting game Cloud Gardens, where you create post-apocalyptic gardens in little diorama scenes. And there's some that he's made and you play through. You grow vines and ivy all over them. It's a really interesting little game, Cloud Gardens. But you can also just kind of build your own scenes as well and then grow ivy all over them. Just kind of fascinating building game, kind of the opposite of this. And the opposite of this in that one you kind of start with ruins and make them more ruinous, and in mine you start with ruins and make them less ruinous. But I was interested that he had so many game objects in his scene, and the users could stick in a lot of game objects. And so I asked him if he did some on-the-fly combining of game objects during play, and he said no, he didn't. And that's really encouraging, because it means that maybe the system can kind of handle that many sorts of objects thrown at it at once. I hope so. If I can get like this entire part of the game, this whole entire hilltop into the game while maintaining a good frame rate, without having to do a lot of fancy streaming and combining of object on an object by object basis, that would be lovely. I'd be really happy with that. And so his comments kind of gave me hope, which is great. And it was also nice to get a friendly response from a developer whose work I admire. Okay, we'll apply that. And we'll stick in our standard material here on these. I've been working on a version of this in Unity 2020 for the universal render pipeline. That pipeline is so different from what we're used to, and it has so many limitations. I mean, I don't know 100% why they did it. Kind of wish they hadn't. But I suppose their old system, this is the last version of, their old system was just too creaky to serve them very well. So, can we blame them? No, not really. Fine. Okay, let's see if this is going to come in the right place if I just stick it out on its own. It did come in the right place, so that's good. All right. There's our two versions of the platform. Now, in this position, we may never see this platform. So now I need to go look at the part of the church building that also has a similar kind of setup on it. And we'll see what happens here and how that whole setup works. And we'll have to kind of duplicate that and put it all together. So let's go see where we're at right now. So, parish church models in here. So you're going to see a bunch of overlay that makes no sense. There we go. We have many thousands of years of history all being overlaid here. And we have this strange block of soil that's sitting out on its own. We'll get rid of that eventually. But we have this kind of already ruined building here. And all of these pieces of rubble actually have a place where they live, which is kind of fun. So, and it's all in this tower collapsed intact base 4 piece. And so there are 4 pieces that the player can click on and rebuild. And if they hover over those pieces will highlight, which will be a clue that there's something to do to interact. And we want the same thing to happen here. So we're going to start with this piece and kind of try to untangle my spaghetti code. So it doesn't matter which 4 of these we look at. In fact, we probably want this one, and I'll show you in a minute. So this has the vert color adjust, that script which is trouble, but the main thing it has is this rebuild from rubble script added to it. And the other thing I want to know is, does it have a collider on it? It does not. There we go. This has the mesh collider on it. And is there anything in this occupying mesh? No. And do we need an occupying mesh? All sorts of stuff we're thinking about here. And then they may not be relevant, but this is just the game object. It has no collider, but this is the actual mesh. And it's got its mesh collider on it. So let's go put a collider on our ruined bit, but not a mesh collider. So we'll just put a big box collider on it. Pardon me again, it's Friday. Friday kills me. Pretty exhausted by the time Friday runs around. Alright, our box collider here ought to scale up to meet the size of our platform, but it's not doing that. That's okay. Let's get rid of the built one just so we don't confuse ourselves. Come on, Unity. Alright. Let's see. Let's make this a little bit bigger. There we go. That's the collapsed one. about that size. Pretty good. And let's bring it up out of the ground a little bit. Make it a little bit bigger. That's probably good enough. Yeah, that mostly covers the volume of the platform, so whenever the user is over any of this, this should change color. So that's nice. That's that cube. Placeholder cube hole. Okay, well, it's not interesting to us at this time. Just wondered what it was doing hanging out there and if I had accidentally imported it somehow. But I hadn't. Okay. So now we've got the collider on it. What kind of collider does it need to be? It's just a regular old collider. It's not even a trigger. Interesting. Okay, we'll leave it as a collider. And what's the next thing we need to do? Its parent object needs this rebuild from rubble. And I'm just going to take a look here. One thing you'll notice is the familiar time span. Initial occupying objects. Okay, we don't really need that. I think that's an optional field, but that's okay. We can keep looking through this. Then we actually look at the objects that are rubble. So like this tower steps object. And this one. So both of these objects are our rebel objects. Very good. So this is what the script knows to go and grab and animate. It has only one per period occupier. Okay. We don't need that, I think. I think we're okay with no per period occupiers. The collider is on child. That tells us to look in and see about which collider we're going to use to check the scene. These are all good scripts. This is the per period occupiers that do not spawn, but we don't care about that one. We don't really have any topsoil to clear out when you click on it. Okay. What else do we need? Apparently we need one of these GUID scripts as well. So these GUIDs, global universal ID numbers, they're really important when we're saving and loading the state of the game for the player, because we need the state of objects the player has interacted with to persist across saves, and so every object that we need to know information about needs to have a component, a universal ID that's going to survive the saves, and this GUID component is the one that does it. It's not without its problems. This was a kind of a Unity company-based prototype for a similar system. I don't know if they've replaced it now with something that works a little bit better, but it's okay if they kind of haven't. Now, why does this have a vert color adjust on it? Seems to me like it wouldn't need it, but we might because it's got a highlight. Oh, so this is just the collision mesh. Right. Okay. So we might... Alright. So I may need to go to this original object here and add some things to it. So I'm seeing what it's working on. So there's an original object, which in this case is just this bit here, but let's go to like this piece here. So there's an original object, which is just the ruined object, and then there's the rubble that gets rebuilt on top of it, And then once the rebel's rebuilding, it replaces all of this with a single object. So I have one object, which is our original base. Then the second object is the rebel that goes on top. And then the third object is the completed object that isn't full, that's again a single object and isn't a bunch of little pieces. To what extent I need that, or to what extent even this is going to work here, I don't know. Yeah, so that's interesting. Why I'm saying that's interesting is because when I hover over this, I want all the little sticks it's made of to rebuild themselves. And what's going to happen is that the original collapsed object is going to stay in place, and then all these little sticks are going to kind of magically appear out of nowhere, and they're going to rebuild themselves but leave the collapsed thing in, and then the collapsed thing will suddenly disappear. We don't really want that to happen. So I might need to dig into the script and say that once the user has chosen to rebuild this object, we have an option to do a swap where we swap in the same frame the original for all of the rubble, and we bring the rubble into place. So we might have to put a kind of a function in here to deal with that edge case scenario, but that's kind of an important case. So we'll probably have to do that. Yeah, and then that avoids us sending out a bajillion commands to go through each vert and change the color a little bit in our highlighting. So we're going to do that. So let's jump into this script here. If we are jumping into the script, yeah, there we go. Let's read through the script and see how it does the highlighting, or how it calls the highlighting at least. So let's see if we've got an on mouse over event. So there it is, highlight rebel block. Turn off original meshes. These are all good bits of scripts, and then we've got the whole time travel loop going on. Oh, also on yesterday I did fix the time. Well, maybe we did that on Wednesday. Fix the time travel so that it was working with objects. We did that on Wednesday. I was prepping this yesterday, and then I also got the medieval soil and topsoil done and imported into the scene, so we can jump all the way to the Saxon period if we want now, which is cool. Okay, save and load. What I'm looking for is something that tells the object to highlight when the mouse is over it. So let's look and see what we have here, what it's listening for. Build holes, fade in direct. So it might be this fade in direct function here. Let's go see if we can find it. So if this object has a mesh renderer attached, if fade in direct is called, how does this get called? That's what I'm interested in. That doesn't really help me. I thought I saw a highlight. This all has to do with fading objects in and out, but it doesn't have to do with the highlighting. There's the highlight part. Unhighlight, highlight rebel block. That's what we're interested in. Okay. vertex color adjust, increase UVX. Yep, that's our highlight. Highlight the rubble block. How does that get called though? Oh, it gets called in this. Mouse pointer enter. So when pointer enters an object, it calls out. What does it call out? What does it send? It just sends an int. What's the int? The object ID. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay, we can work with this. This is all right. And where is it getting its vertex color adjust from? Let's find out. This might be something it's finding on start. Yeah, it finds it in awake. It goes and grabs its own vertex color adjust, and its own rebel builder, and its own layer changer. Okay. Alright, well let's just set this up without too much of the fancy stuff that I was just talking about, and let's see the effect we get, and if that's what I kind of mumbled through here. Okay, let's go to our new one, and let's grab this box collider. And we're going to place this box collider on this one. Okay, so it gets its collider there. And it's the wrong way around. And that's kind of interesting. We've got to rotate that box collider. That's funny. Okay, let's change this again. So I think our Z is going to turn into that size, and our X is going to go back to 1. I really want to rotate this, but it's not going to allow me to rotate it. That one's rotated correctly. I wish I could just steal its rotation. It only gets its color adjust off of its own game object. It doesn't get it from the child that has the box collider on it. Okay. That's all right. We'll just make this approximately fit. So that's a good enough fit right there. The user should still be able to click on it pretty well. Yep, that'll be okay. All right. Okay, the next thing we need, let's go back and look at our original. Thanks, Microsoft. Always jumping into updates in the middle of your work. Oh. And just need to make sure we've got a vertex color adjusted script on our main platform here. We do not. So there we go, vertex color adjust. There it is, and I'm going to say it's pre-populated, so we're not wasting time turning this on and off. I think we'll be okay with that. So that's fine. What else do we need on this? We need our rebuild from Rebel script and our GUID. Yeah. So I'm just going to copy this one out. Let's collapse these in. So an orientation. Do we even need an orientation on this? Not really. This is for building objects. But we do need a start date. And the start date's going to be negative 11,000. And its end date is going to be, I mean, really, like even 100 years is nothing. Okay, initial occupying object. It's going to be this mesh renderer right here. There we go. Collider is not on a child. It has no per period occupiers. And now we need to grab the transform of its rebel. Its rebel is this one. Okay, so that's set up, and it has no topsoil. Oops. Okay, so that's cleared out. So that's all adjusted down. Very good. So the initial thing is set up. Now we need to move on to the next step. Well, maybe it's not entirely set up yet. We need that GUID component. Yep. So let's go find it. GUID component. There we go. Okay, so now it's got its own unique identifier. All right. Let's go see what we have to do next. So that's all set up. That was the original setup, and we have similar thing. Like I said, it's been like a year or more since I've actually looked at this kind of setup. This needs a layer changer script on it, I guess. What do we need to do with the layer changer? You don't maybe need to do anything with the layer changer at this time. That might be something we can work with a little bit later. So I think that one's all set up nicely. And this was just the collision mesh. So it doesn't even have a mesh renderer on it, just a mesh collider. Okay, good. Right, next step. we've got to go look at the rebel. So let's go look at the original rebel here, the tower steps rebel. And what does it have on it? It has a rebel builder script on the parent object. And then each individual object, it's crazy, has a mesh collider and a layer changer, an invert color adjust, all that stuff we don't really need at this time. We might need it in the future, but I don't even know if we do at this time. So really the only thing we're interested in is this rebel builder script. And the rebel builder script has end positions, which is where each object in this begins, and then it has end rotations where each object ends rotations, and we need to set that up. And then it's got a date and an orientation. So let's copy this component. We'll go down to the collapsed copy. It doesn't need its box collider. Let's remove that one. And paste down this rebel builder component. It needs rotations because these have all rotated differently when they collapsed. Let's give the rebel a date. I suppose it's negative 10,900. Doesn't need an orientation. The one big thing it needs is it needs a whole object behavior. Also, we don't need these anymore because we will populate these later. But it doesn't need to spawn anything new. Okay, good. All of our individual objects in here are okay. Now the original object, the original stairs object, it has what's called a my whole object behavior, and this is the final object this is going to end up as, which is yet another object. And this is just the completed, finished whole mesh. Which is probably one object I don't have. Okay, so we'll have to do something about that. I'm just trying to see here what we've got. I don't think we'll need the color adjust or the layer changer, or even the GUID or the box collider. I think the main thing we're going to need is the mesh, and we're going to need this whole object behavior script. I think so. It finds its own parent GUID, I guess. It knows what its original GUID is. This is all used for saving and loading. Okay, we don't probably need to enter all this information in either. Like, I'm not quite sure what this original bounds X and all of that means. Again, it's been a while since I got into these. But what I want to do is I want to see if I can grab this underlying platform, not the skeleton or the sheet under it. Just the underlying platform is what I'm wanting to get. Is it? Let's see what we need to do with that my whole object behavior in the script if it's entirely required. Oops. Actually, it's the rebel builder part we want. So let's see if this is needed. Apparently we do need it. Let's keep looking through here, seeing where else we need to call the my whole object behavior. So when the rebel's rebuilt, it runs through this routine, launches all of these tweens for each object, and when everything's finished, on the last object we call the build rebel on complete. Okay, so this is just a way to try to be efficient here. All right. Why I don't want to use this object as our final object that gets swapped in once this is rebuilt is that one of the posts, this post here, is shorter, and you'll notice the pop. But maybe just for testing purposes, we'll do that anyway. We'll use that just to see if we can get this working here in the next 15 minutes. I'm not sure if I can just copy this out of here. Kind of looks like I can. That's pretty cool. All right. Let's see what this looks like out on its own. Yeah, that's wrong. Just wanted to see if I can rotate this to match exactly as well as I can. We're just going to line all of this up here. This is something I'm going to have to probably do off stream to try to make this as perfect as we can. It's a little bit out of alignment, but not too badly now, so we'll leave that. Okay, so this platform is going to get a whole object behavior. It needs to be off on start. Has no fractured object, it has no submodels. Its end date is going to be, I don't know, 10900, I don't know, no orientation. There's its own mesh renderer. I guess it needs its own GUID. Okay. Doesn't have a parent. Hopefully that's not a problem. There's really, in this whole object behavior, I think all we're really worried about is this kind of stuff here. But we'll see. Okay. Okay, everything may go hideously wrong with this. Now, the last thing I need to do is I need to assign all of these end positions and end rotations. I need to assign them, and I need to steal them off of this one. So, let's see what happens. Let's get into that little utility I've made, which is the populate frag positions list window. Okay, source object is called platform collapsed copy, and the target is platform built. Actually, no. Platform built is the source object, and the target object is the platform collapsed copy. I think this is the way it works. Let's find out. Here we go, fingers crossed. Okay, my little console note here says that the script has run. Let's see if there's anything in this script. Yep. There we go. Now whether that's correct or not, who knows. But, yeah, it's done it. Let's get rid of that one. Okay. We've got this whole messy thing all set up. Right. This is a huge ball of spaghetti, isn't it? Yeah. Let's see what happens when we press play. Let it load into memory here. See if we get errors right at the start. I wouldn't be surprised if we did. Oh yeah, let's turn all that stuff off. So, do you see what I mean by highlighting? If we highlight over this rubble, but I should be hovering over that, and we should be getting some highlighting happening, but we're not. So already something's not working. There we go. Already getting errors. Great. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go turn off the tower. I think we're finished with that part. Second part is we're going to go look and see what we didn't set. Oh yeah, we didn't set the my rubble part. That's silly. Well, we kind of did. Let's see, where's my yeah, platform collapsed copy, that's what we need. Okay, line 128. It needs an occupying mesh go. Okay, fine. Understood. Let's go into the parish church here. Again, the tower area group. The tower collapsed. Don't think we need that. This just has an occupying mesh. Let's grab this as a copy. Place this occupying mesh under here. Let's see. Platform 3. Paste this mesh in, stick it under here. It's gonna, no, it didn't tell me. That's good. Okay. It's got its own GUID. Okay. All right, let's see if this works. This is related to something else going on, and we may not need this. I may need to strip this out of this script, but for now I just want to see if we can get this working at all. So let's play it again. See if we get this error again. Okay, so that's good. We didn't get the error. And look, if we hover over that, it changes ever so slightly. So that is fantastic news. So let's look at this thing. If we hover over it, that lets us know there's something we can do here. Let's click it and see what happens. Here we go. Yay, error. Okay. It's all right. It's a different error now. Okay. Line 221. Ah, well, we don't have rebel topsoil. Okay. Let's see how we can get around this one, because not every object you click on is going to have topsoil associated with it. So let's go all the way up here to our rebel topsoil. Let's find some references to it. Where's our last reference? Okay. Let's see, I've got to do a little if check here. Okay. Okay, if the rebel topsoil doesn't equal null, we can run this. We'll run this script. What else do we need here? What this part of the script does is that for like the regular ruins, the first time you click on an object and there's some topsoil around it, the topsoil vanishes, and once that vanishing is done, then it runs the script to rebuild the objects. But what if there is no rebel topsoil, period? I don't want to duplicate all of this kind of stuff. So let me just think around the logic here. So this is if else stuff. All happens okay. We may just be really barbaric here. So this disperses the soil. So we can either duplicate all of this block of code or we can split it into its own function, but I'm afraid that's going to like unhinge my delicate house of cards here, to mix metaphors. So we'll just duplicate all of this. Else if rebel topsoil, otherwise, if we don't have anything in the rebel topsoil, we're not going to wait for anything. We're just going to jump straight into this. We're going to grab this whole thing here, copy it, replace it. And there we go. We'll just launch the build and all of that kind of stuff. So there we go. That makes the whole rebel topsoil thing optional, which is always good to do. In this case, all right, now let's see which errors we get when we try to click on the object. We are not going to get our desired results, but we should get some results here pretty soon. Right, let's spin around here. Okay, so we hover over the thing and it highlights. That's fantastic. We click it. Yeah, did you see that? And then it moved it and then it made it disappear. All right, and we got another null reference, but we got closer. So let's go see what this null reference is. Different one now, line 342. Ah, my stage manager. Oh, it doesn't have a stage manager object. Right. So most of these objects sit inside their own little level, which is run by something called a stage manager. And that's kind of like an object that keeps track of the state of each little kind of level of rebuilding within here. And that's really an important object because each building part that you rebuild adds to an invisible score, essentially, and then the number of that score determines the next thing that happens in the game. So it's really important to have that on there. And our Mesolithic period will eventually have that. But for now, I want to get around having this, so we're going to run another null check on the stage manager. I just need to see where the stage manager gets used. 4, 3. There we go. 2, 1. Okay. So my stage manager equals stage manager. Marvelous. So it runs a set my stage manager script, but let's just do some null checks on this. And I read somewhere a long time ago that doing a null reference check is like time consuming and inefficient. I don't quite know why, and I don't quite know how to get around that, but there we go. I don't even quite know if that's true, or if I was misunderstanding what I read. My stage manager does not equal null. So this is doing a null check on it if it has a local area manager, because there's a whole bunch of managers within managers that work here in the game. That's a noisy car. And that should do it. That should be all the places where the stage manager is referenced. Yep, okay. Now let's see what other null reference we get. All right, let's run it again and see what happens. All sorts of silly stuff's gonna happen, but we can get around that slowly, and I'll keep working on it. Maybe over the weekend I might actually get a little time to work on it. But the important thing is that we've got this platform to interact with the player and to rebuild when the player clicks it. See, it rebuilds. And then does this thing, and another null ref. Oh my goodness. Okay, once more into the breach here. Line 350. Oh, well, let's do that. Let's step through this. I had a stray semicolon there, which is maybe causing it to jump into part of the script that it didn't need to. I don't know. It was odd. Does not equal null. Does not equal null. Okay. So we should only run this if the myStageManager does not equal null. Okay. Let's see what happens. There we go, and click. Okay, no errors. I mean, obviously there's visual errors. That platform shouldn't be orientated that way. It should be orientated differently. But we can fix all of that. We can get it. So that's a good thing. It's done pretty well. I'm more or less pleased with that. That was kind of fun. All right, so we got that working. And we kind of worked through some of our spaghetti code. Always a good thing to be able to do. So we'll just save that scene out. And that's a really good place to end for today. So I thank you for coming with me on this journey, and we're getting back into it. Next week, we'll kind of probably add some more trees and bushes and foliage to the whole system, and we're going to start actually really digging into this part of the system so that essentially we can run through the gameplay of the entire demo game and get all of these different things working, all these different systems working together, which is exciting to be heading towards the demo, honestly, at this point. It's quite a milestone. So that's a good thing. So next week we're going to start hooking all of these disparate systems that I haven't worked with for years up. There's going to be lots of problems and glitches and bugs, but it's going to be a fun journey. So join me for that on Monday, and otherwise, have a great weekend. Well, not otherwise, just have a great weekend regardless. We will see you next time.